Well, hi everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about a Fender guitar amp. In this case, this is the one of the Fender Pro Amps manufactured in the mid-1960s. It uses twin 6L6 output tubes in push-pull. About 25 watts or so puts out. I think that's I haven't measured it to see exactly what it is. They run the bias in the tubes relatively cold, so I mean it's close to Class B. So but anyway, it's a nice little amplifier. The particular one I worked on is the one with the vibrato section in it, versus like a reverb. They're pretty similar, I gather. So I'm not a guitar guy really, although I sometimes play one. But if you looked up the world's worst guitar player, I would my picture would be honorable mention in that area. So anyway, continuing on, in fact, we can switch over to the schematic here. It's a pretty simple amplifier. Not a lot to it. Pretty basic, really. Uses a couple of uses a preamp stage, and then it uses a split type driver, and then into the 6L6s. So not a lot to it. The 7025s were the 7025 is a 12AX7 that was developed by RCA. I believe it was developed as a low noise 12AX7 if I recall correctly. So that's pretty much the story there. Now there's some things to discuss here in the amplifier. It's got, this particular one has adjustable bias. Some of them had fixed. It's a solid state diode, a single solid state diode, which makes it a half wave rectifier. It's a non-grounded power cord. I believe was in the originally what was delivered to me had a grounded plug in it, which I highly recommend because anytime anybody could possibly touch the chassis, then safety-wise, you should put a grounded plug in. It's a good idea anyway. So, also note then this little red circle I put down near the bottom. Note the capacitor is on the wrong side. See, you've got the ground switch, which I suppose Fender had their reasons for putting that in there. But anyway, that capacitor should be moved to the other side of the fuse. In the event that capacitor ever shorted out, and by the way, the cap would be best if it's a ceramic. But what I would do is I would move the cap to the other side of the fuse, and really the switch is particularly useless. I would put .01 ceramics to ground right on the other side of the fuse. But the reason why you want to put, this is very important, the reason why you want to put the cap on the other side of the fuse is because if it ever shorted out, and who knows why, things happen. I had a friend who was telling me that he had a radio and he plugged it in, and then all of a sudden the wiring all began to burn, and quickly unplugged it, and it was that fuse that came in. This is on a radio, but it's the same sort of thing. So I highly recommend getting rid of it. So not getting rid of it, but moving the capacitor over at least. But I would run caps to ground for both the hot side and the ground. And also, the fuse should be in series with the hot side and not the neutral side. So would be the way I recommend. Not that critical, but I recommend it. Just because you're keeping the 110 volts out of the transformer. So the GZ34 rectifier is really a 5AR4. You can you don't really, you can use that in its place. It really doesn't really matter. Also, some cautions on this amplifier for those of you that are new to working on vacuum tube equipment. You definitely need to be careful. Realize there's 400 to 500 volts here in the B plus lines, so you want to be careful about it. Be careful when you're poking. If it's hot, if it's on, and you're poking around in there, you want to do it with insulated tubes, insulated utensils. I use tuning little plastic tuning sticks that I use in radios. So, but you want to be aware of that it's lethal. If you touch it in the wrong place, you could end up in your favorite pearly gate. So there you go. Let's take a look now in this particular amplifier. This one came to me with by the way, first off, the output transformer in this particular amplifier had been replaced. It was replaced with another Fender output tube, output transformer. But it was not the original, not the stock, not the part number that they list in the schematics. So it was a little bit different, and that's a clue as to the issue. So the issue with this is that when the transmitter, I got transmitters in my brain. When the amplifier was run up, the owner, Chris, had to set the bias at about almost minus 60 volts, which put it well into Class B, if not even Class C, which introduced crossover distortion. If you tried to bring it down to the recommended minus 49 volt, the amplifier went into positive oscillations. So that's an interesting thing about that. We'll talk about that in a little bit more too. Anyway, the radio was the filter caps had been all replaced. The new brand was a new ground and power cord on it, which is great. Chris, the owner, was telling me that the original wiring was actually ripped out of this, so he redid it and did a very neat job about it too, by the way. The original blue molded caps are still in there. I gather that for those of you who are Fender people, that's an important thing to you. So it wouldn't be to me. I'd put new orange drops in there, or some sort of metallized ones, modern ones. But that's okay. I know that's what people like. Anyway, so back to the bias issues. So when I went over there and visited with Chris, and we talked about it, and he hooked up guitar into it and showed me what was going on. So I immediately, and of course it had all kinds of crossover distortion, and because the bias was set so high. So, and he showed me what happened when he tried to set it down. Sure enough, there was all kinds of feedback getting into the unit. Really, it was a positive oscillation. So when I got it into the bench, I clearly was looking at the feedback loop. That I suspected that probably was where we wanted to start and look at it. So that being case here, we're going to go ahead and in this aspect of the video, and it's going to and then we'll transition into the bench video, which immediately follows this. Thank you very much for watching this. Feel free to put in some comments or to like the video. Always appreciate that, and thanks. And this will transition over to the to the bench video down on the service bench. Okay, we've got the Fender Pro Amp on the bench here. It was the issue was that if you the bias, if you lower the bias below like minus 55 volts on these 6L6s, the amplifier would go into positive oscillations. So anyway, I've got things kind of clipped in now. I've now got the voltage set at minus 48.5, which is probably about right. You know, they possibly, who knows what they originally used in the 60s to measure this voltage. It could have been, you know, just a regular Simpson 260 or something, you know, one of those. And so the digital voltmeter has got pretty high impedance, probably that's about right. So anyway, I very much suspected that the issue, what happened was this transformer was replaced at some point in time in its life. And I suspect the problem is the feedback isn't quite right. In other words, it was a little excessive for this particular transformer. So what I did was, I'm on a sports station. Why am I on a sports station? I'm just using a sports station, just running through this Dynaco tuner, as an audio source. So don't have a electric guitar anymore. So anyway, so what I did was I increased the resistance. I added a 2K resistor in there, and actually I initially did it with I initially set it up with a pot and determined that 2,000 ohms was just about the sweet spot. So we got it in there now, and
I looked at how many of these quarterbacks you could consider a franchise quarterback, and it comes out to.
And we're not hearing that. It's all pretty clean now. What happened was that when he would so to get away from the oscillations, he cranked up the bias voltage, so it was well into Class B, almost Class C. So you know, like almost 60 volts, which of course brought in all kinds of distortion. So by bringing that down, so I think this has looked pretty good, and I'm going to go ahead and put this in, and then we'll burn it in for a couple days and see how it goes. But I think this may have got it, so we'll see how it goes. More to go, but I think we're there. The bench.